Welcome back to another episode of Soul Driven with Steph. I am so excited for our special guest today. We have more recently connected over our love of cultivating community. So I'd love to welcome to the podcast Haley Westfall.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, Haley, I know you are out of Arizona, so it's kind of fun to connect with people from across the states and different parts of the country. But tell us about your journey into entrepreneurship and your origin story that kind of led you into business strategy and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I wish I had like a glamorous Cinderella story, but it wasn't the prettiest. I actually spent about 20 years in corporate prior to becoming an entrepreneur. And I honestly landed here out of necessity after a corporate layoff. So I was in a really high paying job doing some awesome leadership work in the corporate space. And it was one of those days where it was like, you make a lot of money. These other people make a lot of money. We need to cut our spending. So this is all of your last day. And I did get another job a couple weeks later, got that up and running, situated, and kind of same thing about 6 months later. You know, you're a highest paid employee. We don't have the money. We're going to have to eliminate your position. So I wish I could say I got here in a prettier fashion, but it was not the best. But it's one of those things where it's like the gift you didn't know that you needed, because I firmly believe I was like so comfy and cozy and really great at my job. And I probably would have never left. And it really required me to like internalize, do I even like doing this, or do I just do it because I'm good at it? And so now, kind of coming full circle, I started in social media strategy. I was very fortunate to have a strong network of community that referred me business. So my entire coaching business on the social media side was built off of word of mouth referrals and sustained for years. And that was great. And more recently in 2023, I've really pivoted my coaching business into kind of marrying my former life as a leader in the corporate space, leading teams and initiatives and strategy, with my current life as a community builder and marrying them in harmony to one another to teach other business owners how to do the same and really leverage intentional relationships, connection, and community to elevate their business and their bottom line, because we're here to make money. And that's okay. It's not like a taboo thing to say. A business that doesn't make money is just an expensive hobby. And so we want to teach you how to do that better with better intention. And that is what I do now.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and I think it's a perfect example of just reminding yourself that, working a corporate job or a 9 to 5 doesn't have as much stability and security as we are kind of taught to believe, because they could still eliminate you or your position at any time. And what a like kind of demotivator to want to work your way up the ranks of the corporate ladder when you reach the top and they say, well, actually, we don't want to pay you that much. So good job for your efforts. But, this is the situation. So if anyone is listening to this and, feeling that kind of maybe nudge on their heart or gut feeling to jump into entrepreneurship or try something different, there's so many positive things that can come from that. And you're still utilizing that 20 years of experience to what you're doing now. You're not starting over, you're starting something new with skills and experience and a network. I love that you said that you built your social media business on, word of mouth and referrals. So did you tap into a community within your local area that kind of built that referral base? Did you create a community? Take us through that kind of next step, because I know you have Collab Culture, which is a community for female small business owners.
Yeah. So originally, no, it was just my personal connections with other friends that I had that were business owners. And a couple of them saying, like, hey, you're creative and have like a good strategic brain. Could you help me with this? And I was like, sure. I mean, I went from making a lot of money to no money real quick. And I have a family, I have 3 kids and a husband. Like, we got to figure it out. And so I started that way. And then about I don't know, a year or so later, I was talking to one of my best friends and I was like, hey, I'm really craving like a local community. We had gone to some other spaces and they were good and great. And there were things that I loved. There were things I could have done without. And it was like, this is totally fine. It was kind of far away. And so we were trying to conceptualize what that would look like and searching for it and couldn't find it. And so we were like, well, I guess we'll just do something, and really thought, we'll go for coffee. There will be like 10 of us, or less. And this will be just like this cute little thing. And it'll serve our need and desire of like what we're looking for. And so we ended up doing this like little dinner. It was so cute, this like boho picnic. And we brought, I think, 12 of our friends that were female entrepreneurs over to my business partner's house and pitched them and just said like, hey, we want to treat you to dinner. Is this something you guys would be interested in? Does it suck? Tell us one way or the other. And they were like, we love it. And we're like, okay, perfect. Like, this is our group. And so we're like, we'll put it on the internet and see if more people want it. But like, we felt great. And I think 72 hours after launching, we had like 45 people signed up. And we were
That's
like, oh, snap. There's like a lot of you. So like, I guess we're not meeting at the coffee shop. We'll try to like kind of figure this out. And it was just this natural evolution where it was so apparently clear that so many people were craving this. They just hadn't been brave enough to take the leap to create it themselves. They were waiting for somebody else to do it. And so as soon as we said yes to that, they were like, yes, please sign me up. And we've just been so firm in our vision, the things that are important to us, kind of the core of our community, that it has really cultivated itself so beautifully. And we now will actually be celebrating our 2 years of our community coming up at the end of January. So in about, 6-8 weeks. And we have about 140 active members. And we're all local here in Arizona.
That is amazing. And I love that, just that mentality of, if you can't find the community that you're so craving, or the business or whatever it is, you make it yourself and invite
Yeah.
people in, because there probably are a lot more people out there that are looking for that thing too. It's really funny, your origin story, because this is why we're meant to connect. When my sister and I had a similar concept or idea to bring women together, especially like the year following COVID, when a lot of these kind of groups that met had dissolved, or people weren't getting together. And our first meeting was a picnic, one of those like picnic tables, like you were describing as well, where we just invited a couple people that we knew
Yeah.
into it, kind of pitched them, said, hey, we want to do this thing. Are you interested? And just kind of grew it and evolved it from there. So that is so awesome. And what a great place to start. And how cool to see that evolution and growth over time. So
Mm-hmm.
I know you still have that collab culture with your partner.
Yeah.
But tell us about your newest adventure. So we met through Six Figure School, and you're kind of using that to catapult you into your next kind of chapter of your business. Tell us
Mm-hmm.
about your community building mentorship, and really what we can expect to learn from you in the InnoVision webcast that you'll be presenting at on January 4th.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. It's one of those things, again, because I stumbled into entrepreneurship by happenstance, that I chose something not because I had like this soul driven passion for social media. It was just like, hey, you're pretty good at it, kind of like corporate, you're pretty good at it, might as well. And so I've really spent the greater part of this last year trying to get more aligned with the way that I'm serving. I am a serial connector in my core. It is literally who I am as a human. And I'm like, how do I equip people with giving them tools from my skill set in order to leverage them for their own business? And so now I pretty much burned my entire previous coaching business to the ground and rebuilt it from scratch. And I am just so, so excited. I am now serving people. I am going to have some like evergreen courses and things like that, but I really am serving in two main ways. So I have a group coaching container called People to Profit, and it is really kind of curated around helping people elevate their business and their bottom line. So really growing your business and your revenue through community and connections. And so this is like really looking at anywhere you're connecting with people, anywhere that you're consuming your message, interacting with you, interacting with your content, whether that's through social media, email marketing, a podcast, guesting like this on a podcast, participating in community, facilitating community, and then anyone else who's helping execute your vision, whether that's through strategic partnerships, affiliates, ambassadors, your team, like your actual team, people that work for you, people that you have contracted, and everything in between. And so People to Profit is my group coaching program, which is just launching this month, which I'm so, so excited. And the people who have already jumped in are just chef's kiss in like perfect alignment for it. So I cannot wait. And then also in a one-on-one high level coaching container as well. So I think people get really fixated on what community has to look like. And for
Mhm.
anyone listening, I just want you to know there's not like a cookie cutter. There's not a cookie cutter for it. It can look so many different ways. I was just telling someone the other day, you can cultivate community through a podcast. You can
Oh, yeah.
cultivate it through a really potent email list that is based in storytelling and really bringing people into your world and offering opportunities for them to interact with you in a bi-directional format. You can do it in small containers, big containers, in person, online. Like there's so many different ways. I'll share a really quick story. This year I was like really reflecting back on like how community impacted me individually. And obviously collab culture is front of mind because it's like my baby and it's like I love it so much. But the other thing that was front of mind was this really self-created mini mastermind that really happened through Instagram. I met 3 other friends through Instagram. They all run communities for female founders and they all have coaching or consulting businesses. So we kind of aligned on that. We became friends. We started doing Zooms where we would have coffee and chat and just like bounce each other's ideas off. And one day we were like, that'd be so cool if we could do this in person because we all live in different cities and we've never met in real life. So we booked an Airbnb and we spent 4 days in Orange County back in October. You literally would have thought we've been best friends since we were kids. We were like running through the airport, open arms to each other, have never met these women in real life. And I gained more clarity around my business from those 4 days with them and just life in general than I had in any paid container I've ever been before.
Mm.
So I just want to encourage you that even in like the unexpected places, you may find it. You just have to frame your mind around looking for it and understanding what kind of needs it's going to fulfill for you.
I love that. That is such a unique way to connect with people too, because yeah, we can meet people online, but it's that like once we get to meet them in person and you're like, oh yeah, this friendship is real, right? It's real in real time and real life. And those are some of the coolest connections that you can have. I've met people through a coaching company that I've been part of for the past few years that are from all over the country, and we get to see each other about once a year at a conference, and it's like you feel like you've known these people forever because you're in it together, even doing the accountability and calls on Zoom and then just getting to see each other in person, even if it's once a year, is really special. So I love that. But it takes intentionality, right? Like it takes you intentionally seeking out these uncomfortable experiences of reaching out to someone, not knowing if they're going to respond or not, right?
Yeah.
And putting yourself out there, really, and being vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the conversation during Innovision because we're going to be talking all around the culture of community and we're going to be talking about a lot of misconceptions like what it is and what it isn't, why you should be leveraging it in different creative ways that you can be leveraging it for your business, and really missed opportunities that you're leaving on the table by not leveraging it. Because I think we've just created such a hustle culture in entrepreneurship where we're like, hustle, grind, working 15-hour
Mhm.
days, like all these things. And it's like, you don't have to do that. I used the analogy the other day of a tree. And so it's like strong trees have roots that run deep, not roots that run wide. And so if we're really, really intentional, like you were saying, creating that intentionality around our interactions, how we're participating, how we're engaging and facilitating that connection, you may make 3 connections, but they are like the connections you needed to make versus 300 that people can't even remember your name or what you actually do. And so I'm just such a firm believer that like you're one connection away from the catalyst to absolutely transform your life or business. You just have to be willing to put yourself in the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And put yourself out there and just being able to be in those rooms where people are leveling up, right? Like it's
Mhm.
finding the right rooms of people that you want to be with and associate with and run with. And a lot of times it's getting in rooms that you feel like you're maybe not at their level,
Yeah.
but that's how you know you're in the right room because they're going to challenge you and push you.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And I think you can be in more than one
Yes.
too, right? Like I was just on another podcast earlier today and I was telling her, like, I want to be in the place where I'm able to shine light for others that may be, a couple years behind me or a couple steps behind me. But I also want to be in those rooms where I'm not the big fish, where
Mhm.
there's people that are years ahead of me and I'm like gleaning their knowledge and their wisdom and learning from their mistakes. And so like there's great power in having both.
Oh my gosh, 1000%. I love that. So, in the past month, we just, our topic for Sister Circle for November was cultivating community within our business and
Mhm.
why that's so important. And I love that you touched on how there are so many different ways to do that. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be one way of having I think we tend to think membership model, but it doesn't need to be that. It could be so many different things. And the cool part is really not even just having the connection with you and your clients, but getting your clients to connect with each other on a deeper
Oh yeah.
level. And like you said, being the connector for other people. Someone asked me this year what I thought the uh, biggest action step I took was to kind of up level myself and my business. And I was like, 1000% making new connections because
Mhm.
you never know which connection is going to lead you to maybe the direction or the path or maybe another connection. But again, that requires just like intentionally putting yourself out there and getting in those rooms.
Yeah.
I would love to know what is one maybe challenge or obstacle, and it could be in your corporate life or even just small business ownership. What is one challenge or obstacle that you've overcome, and what did you learn from it?
The first one that comes to mind is establishing really clear boundaries and expectations. I think when I went into entrepreneurship, I really had no basis. Like I had nothing to compare to. So I didn't know what was normal, what was expected, anything like that. And I probably gave a lot more of myself than I should have. And in our mind, I think we think, well, the more we give, like the more value they're going to see. And that isn't necessarily the truth because oftentimes we're giving for free, right? Which is great. But at the end of the day, they're assigning a value with like
Mhm.
your work that you're providing and a monetary value. And so I realized that really quick where I was either people were overstepping boundaries. It just my pricing wasn't in alignment with really the value that I knew I was providing for people. And so I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years really getting clear about what's important to me, how I provide and serve, what I'm willing to quote deal with, if you will, what
Mhm.
I'm not, like what are the hard boundaries and being really firm and confident in like putting those forward and not wavering on them.
Yeah, absolutely. Because no one's going to make them for you in entrepreneurship. It's you. You are the boss, and you ultimately, kind of train people how they're going to interact with you and what the expectations are. And I'm sure setting those up from the get go, right? Once you learn
Mhm.
that, ooh, I maybe should have had this conversation right away, but we don't know what we don't know. So I think that's a really natural learning curve for anyone, especially in a business.
I have a friend and she's an attorney and I learned this from her probably a couple years ago and I was like, wow, this is like so powerful and loving at the same way where she has in her contracts that she will do no communication via text message, like no client communication via text. And part of that is like a privacy issue, but also like protecting her time and energy. And I remember one time texting her, a quick question, but it was in context about something legal. And she had like, she's like, I literally keep it saved in my notes and it's just a script. So I don't overthink the communication. And I literally send it back and say, just as a reminder, all client communication needs to take place via email. I would love to unpack this with you, whatever. For as a reminder, here's my email address. And she's like, I had to take my emotion out of it and just make it very like matter of fact. Is like this is a clear boundary for me, and I just like appreciated and respected that so much.
That's a great lesson and example that we could all take from. Yeah, it's like what are your preferred methods of communication, and are you holding true to them, right? Because yeah, we're being bombarded with Facebook messages and text messages and emails and DMs and Instagram, and there's just so many different ways to reach you as a business owner. And of course, we don't want to I am guilty of like if someone messages me on Instagram or Facebook, like reading it and forgetting about it, or just like there's so many different places to check. So that's a perfect example of how to set more boundaries. So on the flip side of that, what brings you the most joy in your business right now?
Mm, I think the most joy in my business. So I am just like a connector of people. It is just ingrained in me. It is literally in my DNA. It is who I am. And so I think rallying people around a topic that is so near and dear to me that I feel like so aligned with is really bringing me so much joy because it's something I chose on purpose. It's something that I very specifically am pouring my heart and soul in. And so cultivating a space where I'm bringing people around that exact same topic has been just so absolutely fulfilling for me. I just launched a dinner series here locally in Arizona called The Table, and we actually have another event for it tonight. And it's just been so cool to see like other people that are like willing to put themselves in the room and say yes because they want to cultivate community within their business and they want to be a part of the conversation and get their questions answered. And we had the first one last week and I was in like literal tears after like as everyone was introducing themselves because I'm like, this is what I've been looking for. Like this is what I've been searching for and it feels so aligned and I just want to give this gift to everybody.
I love it. I know I saw your posts following that event and I know that feeling and it's just so good. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that so much. And yeah, the table looks and sounds amazing. So I'm going to have to think about how we can do something like that here in La Crosse, Wisconsin, because how fun to get people together over dinner and that shared common experience that we're all looking for.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to someone who is still trying to figure out why should I build community within my business or even just seek out a community on my entrepreneurial journey?
Mhm.
What's the benefit to that?
Yeah. I think we're, as human beings, like we're not intended to do things in isolation. That's literally not how we were designed. And so I think you have to get really crystal clear about what you're looking for. I was sharing with someone earlier today. I'm actually in multiple communities and I facilitate one. And I'm a firm believer that you should have really clear alignment with each one, how it serves you or how you're serving within it, because just like you would never go to your, I don't know, single friend for marriage advice. You would never go to a friend who doesn't have kids for parenting advice, right? So we can't expect one group of people to be our be all, say all, end all for everything. And so getting really, really clear and understanding what am I looking for right now? What am I looking for? What are the needs? What am I looking to have fulfilled? And I think really understanding that yes, you can be chasing leads for your business and you can be running ads and you can be doing all those things, but there's like an end of the rope at some point in time. And I feel so firmly that cultivating the relationships that create like the strongest web of an infrastructure under your business will not only sustain it when times are hard, but it will be the most steady way to elevate your business year after year, because you just become the go-to person for fill in the blank. You're immediately front of mind for people. As soon as somebody says fill in the blank, whatever the word is, I'm looking for a, you know, attorney, I'm looking for a photographer, I'm looking for a whatever, you're going to be front of mind because you spent the time and energy cultivating that relationship with people rather than hoping that somebody sees your ads and likes the style of your pictures.
Yeah, it's a natural way to market your business
Mhm.
and also connect you with other people that you could align with and do maybe collaborations or really I feel, and I keep saying this, that community is the future of doing business and
Mhm.
community and collaborations, right? Because we can be part of communities, but until we really collaborate and tap in and show up for the meetings and
Yeah.
contribute, instead of just seeking out, what can I get out of this? Until we really like pour ourselves into it and really buy into the community, like it's only a group of people, right? So building those relationships is really what is going to strengthen yourself and your business. Plus, I feel like it's just that like people to surround yourself with when things get tough, right? Because we're all going to go through seasons of highs and lows in
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. So they're going to pull you up as much as they promote you, right? To be able to be real and share in some of those maybe struggles or experiences. And they're going to support you when you need them most.
100%. And I think it's not enough, to your point, to just be in the room, to
Yeah.
just physically be in the room, right? If we think about, if you were to go to a, say, a networking event and there were 100 people there and you just said, "Hi, I'm Stephanie," and you handed your business card to 100 people, or you went to a networking event of 100 people and you had meaningful, purposeful conversations with 3 people, you asked them how you can help support them in their business right now. They told you and you actually followed up on it. I would argue 10 out of 10 times the latter is going to be far more fruitful for your business than the 100 business cards, because guess what? They don't remember you. They're throwing your business card away. And it has nothing to do with like the business card itself, but it's like the passive act of like quantity over quality, and that is not sustainable. So I just think it's so, so important when you're putting yourselves in these rooms to even understand why you're there in the first place and be really intentional about what you're holding yourself to and how you're stewarding your time while you're there.
Oh, that is gold advice. Yeah, go deeper with a couple people that you really connect with, that you see yourself referring, they would be referring you, than just passing out your business card. I mean, isn't that such an outdated way of, I mean, that's what I picture as like a networking event, right? And that's why I'm like, we're not hosting networking events. We're hosting experiences for deeper connection amongst women
Yeah.
in business. And I think that's really where you and I align so much, is we're looking to actually, kind of force people to create that connection. And I mean, going into some of these rooms can be very intimidating, especially if you're more introverted or maybe you're new and you don't know anyone or you're new at business. But that's where just like having that mindset is really going to be key. Okay, if I can talk to one person, guess what, they'll probably connect me with someone else, or I'll make one really solid connection. And to just have that intention for each sort of experience
Yeah.
or room that you sign up for would be huge. I mean, as many as you go to, that would add up immensely over time. And I think that is better time and energy spent than dollars pouring into marketing, pouring into ads, just hoping you're the right people see your stuff, like you said. So I love
Yeah.
that. That's great advice. What sort of advice would you give to someone who is wanting to cultivate maybe a community within their business, or maybe they already have one but they want to create deeper connection amongst the members?
Hmm. I think using like a visualization analogy where getting the people, like if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm not sure what this looks like, things aren't clicking, people aren't bought in, the engagement's poor. I think we have to really do some internal work to say, am I making this too much about me? Because I think we put an unrealistic expectation on ourselves that we're the stewards of these communities and it's about us, and it's actually not about us at all. We are just simply the vessel to create this space for other people. And so I think I use the analogy of like a movie theater. And so if we're sitting in a movie theater and we're all in rows and we're all facing forward at one screen, right? The screen, say, is us, say, I'm the screen, everyone's facing me. Everyone can exist in the movie theater in rows and never interact with one another. We can literally be sitting in our chairs or our recliners. We're all focused on me and no one is interacting. That is not community. But if you visualize going to a wedding, you're at a wedding, you get sat at a table, maybe you know the people with you, maybe you don't, but you're all in a circle, you're all facing inward. It's not up to the bride and groom to entertain you, right? They're the vessel, they created the space, but it's not up to them to entertain you. It's up to you to create that connection and create the fun table at the wedding, right? And interact with one another. And so I think really getting clear of like, am I making it too much about me? And if so, that's okay, but just realize that that's the case. And I also think the other part of that is feedback. I think oftentimes we create what we think people want, and in all reality, that's actually not what they want at all. And so I think constantly asking for feedback, asking for engagement from people, do a survey, do stuff on your stories, ask people what it is that they want and how you can best serve them. And then take all that data and kind of marinate on it, digest it, and decide, how could I do this better? What could this look like? Because like even with our community for collab culture, our format in 2022 when we first launched is different than our format in 2023, and that was based on feedback. What we thought people wanted was actually overkill, and it was too much and it was overwhelming, so they actually wanted less. And so we changed our format up for 23 and it's been so good, but we wouldn't have known that, right? Because we were just
Right.
hypothesizing what people might want. So I think that's huge. Being willing to, be open to that kind of constructive feedback and finding out from people what it is that they want. And then also realizing it's very, very little, if at all, about you, but more so to your point about the experience you're creating for others to connect with one another.
Yeah, I love it. That is such great advice to, yeah, make it about the people, make it about what they want. And I think like we often create something because we wish we had it, right? Or it's something that we're really excited about, but which is good and that's important, right, to make things that we're excited about and that we want, but also like you said, gathering that insight and input of like, well, how do they want to receive this type of offering, am I going about it in the right way? Like you said, they wanted less instead of more because they're probably busy or whatever it is, but you wouldn't have
Yeah.
done that without asking them. So
Yeah.
and
There's an
that
amazing book. Have you read the book Retention Point?
no.
So it's thin. If you guys have not read it and you have offers of any kind that you serve people with, I would highly, highly recommend. You could literally read it on like an hour and a half, 2 hour flight. I read it like 3 or 4 times, and I think it's just there's so many little golden nuggets in there. But one of the things that they talk about is there comes a tipping point to where say it's a monetary value, right? You're charging, I'm making it up, $50 for something. We think, well, I want to provide so much value that it's undeniable, that it's like $50, it's well worth it. But actually, there's a tipping point to where if you offer too much, then
Mm,
people get that like information fatigue where they're like, it's too much. I'm leaving too much on the table. If I'm not attending everything, I'm not like showing up, whatever. And so they're actually more inclined to separate from the membership at that point because it's actually more than what they need. So there is like a sweet spot where like you need to give enough, but sometimes if you give too much, it can have like that reverse effect.
That is so good. Okay, retention point. I'm gonna add that to my book list. I
Yeah.
love that concept, and I've seen it play out. I've seen it play out where it's like, oh, but I'm gonna give them all this stuff, so it's like value packed, but then they're overwhelmed because they can't actually make it to all of those things, or they know they're not going to utilize them. So then
Mm-hmm.
they either want a lower price membership, or they're just gonna like bow out altogether. So that is really interesting. I'd love to read more on the research behind that. I am
Yeah.
sure that that is very valid in so many businesses. And then we start to take it personally, right? Well, like, why don't they want this thing that I created? And they said they wanted it, but now they don't. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, maybe it's just not coming packaged in the way that they hoped, or in a way that they can really take it in and consume it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And be able to take action on it. Again, like depending on what capacity you're serving people, whether it's business owners, it's moms, it's, I don't know, people that are in a very specific niche, maybe it's photographers, whatever it is, like it's going to be different for everyone. And so I think we have to, again, just like go back to the drawing board to say, is this what people want or is this what I want? Is this what they said they want or is it what I think that they want? And there's definitely like, you know, some wiggle room in between. And don't get me wrong, like in my community that I run with Stephanie, we are constantly asking for feedback and we don't implement everything
Right.
because at the end of the day, we've created this community and there are things that we are very passionate about or we have created in a certain way on purpose. And
Yes.
so there are some things, but we actually just sent an email out this week with, maybe it was last week, with like feedback results from our survey. And we were super transparent. We were like, here's some things that have come up and here's the response and why. And so it was like, you know, this question, it was like, yeah, we're actually not going to do that, but this is why, blah 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 blah, and like, or this is a great piece of feedback because of that we're implementing A, B, and C. And people were just really appreciative of the honesty, and even if they didn't get the answer they liked, they knew it was thoughtful, their voices were heard, and we had given like a thoughtful response. So I think soliciting that feedback, whether you think you'll like it or not, is so important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you did that. And to just explain the yes, we're going to go with this because, and no, this doesn't align, but like we appreciate all of the feedback, right?
Yeah.
And that's a great example of how we could implement more of that into our business to just make sure that what we're putting out is going to be what people want and well received, and at the same time fill our cups up as well, and make it fulfilling for us in our business. So, oh, so good. So, I want to know, you are obviously big into growth mindset. We met through this online six-figure school. How do you continue to grow personally and professionally?
So it's funny. I tend to be a consumer of information. I'm like a lifelong student. I finished grad school and I told my husband, I think I'm going to get my PhD. This was like, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago. And he's like, are you crazy? Like, why? And I was like, I don't know. I just like to learn. So
Yes.
I actually had to recently put myself on like an information pause because I was just like over consuming and it was like too much.
Yeah.
And so even with like reading, I actually did order a new book yesterday, but I haven't read it yet. But reading podcasts, like a lot of this stuff, I had to take a minute because I was in such a like visionary stage with my business where I was like, I need to quiet the noise a little bit. But I think for me, it is from a growth perspective, putting myself in new uncomfortable situations for new rooms, right? Like I'm going to get something completely different from a room full of people that are 10 steps ahead of me than I am from people that I'm teaching in my programs. Like that is going to look completely different. And so I think for me, it's like challenging myself to get uncomfortable. I actually signed up for a networking event here in Arizona. It's a big group. I've never been to one of their events before, but it is like probably 85% men that usually attend the event and like 15% women. And one of my friends, Jillian Murphy, we are going to go together. And I was like, this is going to be interesting because, like,
Yeah.
I worked with surgeons for 19 years. So, like, I can hang with the dudes just fine, but it's a completely different demographic environment than what I've surrounded myself with for the past 2 years. So, I'm really intrigued to see, like, how it stretches me, how I like respond in that environment. And it, like, again, it's uncomfortable. And I'm a raging extrovert. And even for me, ooh, this is kind of like, I'm kind of unsure. I'm not sure how it's going to go. But I think like stretching yourself in ways that are allowing you to understand yourself better and other people better is how you grow. Like, and that's just such a consistent habit, like a muscle you can be reworking all the time. And it can serve you in everything, personal life, health, like every facet, parenting, marriage, like every asset or facet of life, it can be fulfilling.
Yeah, that's so good because I am just like you, a huge consumer of content, which I think you have to be. Like, if you're obviously leading a community and teaching them new things, like, you need to be learning new things. So it's great. But then there's that tipping point again where it's like, gets to be like too much, like it's swirling in your brain. Or I find for me, if I can't actually implement what I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning, then I start to get frustrated because then that for me is like, okay, like, gotta turn it off for a little bit until you're actually able to integrate and implement some of these things that you've already learned before moving on to next things. You almost have to treat it like you're in school, right? Like, you
Yeah.
don't move on to the next class or the next topic or the next semester until you complete what you've done. And I think it's so great to be growth minded and always learning new things. But I find that for myself, I have to check myself, like you were saying. And I think just so many entrepreneurs consume a lot of content, but are you actually integrating it? Because at that point, it's worthless if you're not doing anything with
Yeah.
it to like really better yourself. But knowing that you don't have to always read books or listen to podcasts or go to conferences just to gain that growth mindset piece. It could literally be, like you said, stretching yourself, stepping into a room of people that you're maybe not as comfortable with and learning new things about yourself. So that
Mm-hmm.
is a perfect way to put some of that other stuff on pause if you're feeling overwhelmed with some of the content overload, and just still challenge yourself
Yeah.
in a new fashion. So I love that. One of my favorite questions to ask is, what are you most proud of about yourself?
Oh, I feel like I am most proud today of not giving up on entrepreneurship. I think it would have been really easy after I dusted myself off to go back and get a corporate job. Was super employable, had an amazing work history, I have all the degrees, all the things. And it would have been the safer and easier route. And over the years, it's not been the smoothest, it's not been the prettiest, and I could have bowed out at any point in time. I am so grateful for my husband because he is just like unwavering support. I remember even when I lost my job, I remember calling him and just sobbing. I did not know what to do with myself. And immediately he was like, it's going to be fine. Like he was just like, it's going to be fine. And so I just feel like his belief in me has helped so much. But I'm just proud of myself for not playing it safe and just being willing to challenge myself to stay in the game, to keep, showing up every single day, even on the days that it sucked. And I was like, man, it would just be great to have a steady paycheck and work for someone else and not have to do with all these things because I just am so grateful. I mean, I have 3 kids and entrepreneurship, even if it provided me nothing else, it's provided me the flexibility to be more present with them. I drop them off at school. I pick them up from school. I'm chaperoning my daughter's field trip on Friday. I'm able to go to all the things. And it's like, I never had that before. Like, it was just like, mommy's working. You're the last one to get picked up at daycare every day. And it's like, that sucks. Like, that sucks as a parent to feel like you're always working. And, not that I thought that they loved me any less or anything like that. But it's just offered me an opportunity to see a different side that I would have otherwise just missed out on.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, I'm proud of you too for sticking it out because you clearly have a gift and it's meant to be shared. So, my final question is what drives your soul today? What do you get up for each morning?
Mm. I get up every morning to honestly be an example for my girls. I think that raising future women is such an important responsibility. And I just want to be such an undeniable example for them in every aspect of life. I want to show them that, mommy's chasing her dreams and that mommy is worthy of big things and that mommy is capable and mommy is driven and mommy is present and mommy is strong and mommy takes care of her body and has boundaries and like all these things. And I think when you think about it that way, it's like such a heavy responsibility. But I already see, even in my oldest, who's only in fifth grade, I already see some of these challenges that are coming into play with friends and just dynamics and hormones and like all these crazy things. And I'm like, man, I just want to be like an unwavering like stability for my girls, an example for them that they're capable of so much and worthy of so much every single day. And not that I wasn't doing that before when I had a regular job, but it is cool to bring them along for part of this process. And they're just so cute when I tell them, like, oh, I have a meeting or I have whatever. And they're like, West Collective or Collab Culture? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I hang out mostly on the gram. So if you want to come find me over there, it is the Haley Westfall, Haley, West like the direction, fall like fall down. Don't put a P in it. It's not fancy. It's just fall. That's where I hang out most often. You can also come find me on LinkedIn. I've been trying to resuscitate my LinkedIn from my corporate life just recently. I figured I would dust it off a little bit. So if you want to come find me over there as well, we can hang out over there. I can also provide you with a couple of links for some freebies that I have around that networking with intention and purpose, and also a series of free connection calls that I host for community builders every month.
Awesome. Thank you. And until next time, everyone, keep following what drives your soul.